Abby, just let me know when the light's on.
I will. Okay, the light is on.
Can help me with the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Take it while you
I'd like to call the meeting of the Hayden City Council to order. It is Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. It is 5 p.m. and the council are all located in the Hayden City Hall Council chambers. I was at the hospital today, have been exposed, and I just didn't want to be a transmitter. So I was prudent and thought I'd take it from here. Roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Excellent. Abby, would you choose someone to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure. Donna, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move forward with the consent calendar.
Mayor?
1A approved. Yes?
Sorry. Were we going to move an item up on the agenda?
No, not that I know of. Everything was correct.
Right order.
Okay, perfect.
Okay to move forward?
Yes.
1A, consent calendar approval of August 17th, 2021 City Council special meeting minutes. And council, thank you for taking the time to do that with respect to HARS. 1B, acceptance of right-of-way dedication and grant of easement from Earl and Leslie Pledger. C, approval of J, 2021-2068 Hayden Canyon First Edition Master Development Agreement. D, approval of J 2021-0348 Hayden Meadows Master Development Agreement. 1E, approval of nomination of Daniel Neese to Veterans Commission. 1F, approval of bills for payment. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as read?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Thank you. I do not see whether or not we have visitors for public comment. Abby, if we do, would you please invite them?
Mayor, I have not received any requests for public comment. Visitor.
Excellent. We will then move forward to public hearing A, fee schedule rate increase. And Roger, would you please set the standard for the public hearing?
Okay, all three of these public hearings tonight are city initiated, and here's the rules or the agenda we follow. Staff will present, council will ask staff questions, we'll then ask the public to comment. Council can ask the public questions, then we'll close the hearing, council will deliberate, and then we will seek a motion.
Thank you. Donna, the time is yours. And please, if I can't see anyone, or please make sure that we do what we're supposed to do. Abby, Roger, in that standpoint, I'll just look to you for guidance.
Okay, and Sandy is doing the presentation on this one, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. We're here tonight to look at a fee schedule change for both the sewer fees and some recreation fees. We'll talk about, the sewer bills first. The city followed the 2013 fee plan for fiscal year 14 through 17. Fees then were unchanged for fiscal years 18 and 19. The city has followed the 2019 fee plan since fiscal year 2020. These fee increases are necessary to pay the additional costs associated with the federally mandated changes to the HARBS treatment plant. If the new water quality standards are not met, the fines will be $36,500 per day, or over $1 million per month. Staff is currently working on a utility billing assistance program to help economically disadvantaged residents with their sewer fees. This will come before council for approval when it's complete. In addition, the state of Idaho Department of Health and Welfare is implementing a new program, Low-Income Home Water Assistance Program, in October of 2021, which will help with utility bills. And then these are the fees that Susie is changing in recreation. The recreation programs need to be self-sustaining. It's necessary to raise fees for individual registrations, teams, and sponsors due to the increased cost of renting school facilities and the rising cost of staff and supplies. Susie Cano, Community Services Director, reevaluated each program and kept increases as small as possible to make sure that the programs are still affordable for our residents. And that's all I have.
Okay, council have any questions? Matt, you have any questions?
Just a question regarding an impact fee. And I'm looking on page 3 of 7, and it's the transportation impact fee, and that's the fee that is charged per housing unit to help pay for the impact on our traffic, our roads and so forth, that that new dwelling causes an impact on. My question is, the $1,813 will be our new fee beginning September 1, 2021?
It's our current fee.
Oh, that's our current one.
Yeah, there's not a change to impact fees on this fee schedule change.
And do we know, because I remember just about 2 or 3 years ago, it was about $1,600, that impact fee. Does that ring a bell?
I know that we updated it with a cost of living increase.
It's about 1,800 right now, 1,800 and something. And that we're in the process of updating the impact fee. So in the coming months, I'm thinking in the fall sometime, we'll be bringing a change to the impact fee to the council for approval.
So will that be an amendment to this then, if we change it?
Yeah, we do a new fee schedule anytime we change any of the fees.
But, okay,
And a
we
new
can do that at
hearing.
any time, is that correct?
Yes, just a new hearing, notice procedures in the press and another hearing.
The reason why I ask, it's way too low. We need to increase this tremendously, and that's my position on it. The builders need to pay for more of the impact of the city.
Yeah, we're under an impact fee study update right now, and like I think Brett said, I think fall is probably a good time, and so once we would have that, we could just do another hearing to increase fees.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Dick, do you have any questions?
No.
Jerry, any questions? Well, thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Roger, just for the public, looking at that, we are looking at the FY 2022, and you can see the $105. So the monthly fee would be going to $52.50. And so that increases $350 per month. And you can see the projected increases over the coming years. Those increases go down. If the council follows this, we're just asking tonight for approval of the FY 2022, and that's partly why it's in tonight, is we have included that increase as part of the budget, but it goes from $350 to $250 to $250, 50 cents, and $1.50. And the council originally, back in 2019, chose not to adopt the whole thing, but to do it on an annual basis. And so that's what we're doing, to look and say, staff level here, we're trying to follow what the FCS financial consultant recommended for us to meet the financial requirements for the phase 2 wastewater treatment plant.
I think it's also important for the public to know that, we don't like, sewer fee increases. I pay them too. I don't like to see the increases, but just for the record, most of this increase is because we have to clean the water up better. It's not to increase capacity. Capacity kind of automatically gets increased, but what did Ken say, 1% maybe?
The portion of the Phase 2 project that has to do with capacity
Yeah.
is separate and is paid for out of the capacity fees that people pay.
But we have to clean the phosphorus
Yes.
out of the water. We got to almost make it non-existent, which I don't know if that's even possible. But those are mandates sent down to us from the federal government, so.
The two main ones that the plant would not meet, is my understanding, is the phosphorus and the dissolved oxygen level.
So is there anyone from the public that wants to comment? Okay. If I mess up your name, I apologize beforehand. Debbie Jones? Come on up.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Oh, you don't want to comment? Oh, I just can't read that one, so.
How could you mess that one up?
You know, I was testing her to see if she really wanted to come up or not. So, okay. And Debbie Jones is against the proposal. Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else from the public that wishes to address this? Okay, hearing none. I guess there's no public to ask questions of. So we'll close the hearing and council can deliberate. Jerry, do you have anything?
I support the changes.
Dick?
I support them, but we're all faced today with increases in everything we do, and we don't like it. We always keep our costs and our changes to a minimum, which they've done here. And that's one of the reasons why, if you look at Hayden's levy rate, it's lower than anybody in the county and partly most of the state. It's because we always felt that we shouldn't take more money from the public than we need to pay the bills. That's what our job is. So now, 20 years later, it's turned into a problem because our levy rate is low, because the costs are up so much, but there isn't much we can do about them. That's just the way it is. So we do our best to keep them down, but we have to live with some of it.
Matt, do you have any?
Yeah, the regulatory part of this, there's not much we can do. It costs cities throughout North Idaho literally hundreds of millions of dollars to do upgrades to their sewer treatment plant. One town in particular was Ponderay. They didn't have the money. They didn't know how they were going to do it. I think eventually they did get a loan, but when the federal government puts a mandate on you, you have to do this or you are fined $36,000 a day, we can't fight that. So that part of the increase, there's nothing we can do about it. The other part that really upsets me is that the lawsuit by the NIDCA and the builders, that cost us over $1 million to defend and settle. They did not win that case. They said that our fee was too high. It was at that time $1,260, somewhere in that, our cap fee roughly. And they said it was too high. We could have, by law, actually charged more. And so we still got sued. What gripes me the most is that when the builder took out a building permit, they paid this sewer cap fee of that $1,260. And then when they sold the house, what did they do with that money? They reimbursed themselves in this pocket. So then they sue us and say, we want that same amount of money to put in this pocket. And that's what that case was about. And I'm really upset that they would damage our citizens because of wanting money in both pockets.
Anything else?
Can I say something about that very subject that Matt
Sure.
just talked about? To me personally, and I've been doing this a long time, that was the most frivolous lawsuit I've ever seen in my life. There was no basis for it. And like he said, it went through the Supreme Court because they said we didn't have the right to charge that fee. The Supreme Court said, yes, we did. And we do. But we would like the methodology that you used is, we don't understand that real well. So they had what was the Haley Loomis case down there. They liked that methodology that was used. So when it was all said and done, we took the Haley Loomis methodology and we used it to give them what they wanted. And lo and behold, we weren't charging enough money. We had to raise it because they sued us because they didn't want to pay it. But the end result is we had to raise it. And in the end of all that, we had $1 million worth of attorney's fees. So who won that? The attorneys won it. Nobody else wins those kinds of things, and we try our best to stay out of those situations, but sometimes it's pushed right down your throat.
Roger, just since that came up, just as a note, those that can see the screen there after FY 2024, the $350 per month charge for the litigation comes off.
I want to make a correction. It wasn't $1,260. My memory caught up with me. It's $2,260 was the cap fee. I was mistaken. And when you hit 60, things are a little slower, so took a while.
I'd like to compliment Sandy's staff in trying to find ways, come up with ways to help people pay these increases in bills, because, you know, some of us may look at a $7 increase as no big deal. Well, it is a big deal to some folks. And, you know, we're doing our best to try and help them any way we can, but can't always promise. So anyway, can we have a motion?
Could I make one more comment, please?
Sure.
If I will. This goes back to some of the history of why the cap fee is higher than, say, Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls. Back when Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene developed their sewer treatment plants, they got about a 95 or an 85% funding grants from the federal government. And they only had to come up with a much smaller amount locally. By the time we built our plant, those grants dried up. So we had to borrow the money to build ours. So we have a more expensive startup cost with our plant than Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls, because that's what we hear, where they're lower. Well, there's a reason why. When you have a big grant, that helps you out a lot. We didn't have it.
And on that note, a lot of people don't realize the city of Hayden's only been in existence since 1955. We're not an old city by any means. So anyway, can we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed fee schedule.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Hearing none, roll call, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
And Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Okay, our second public hearing is revision to public safety impact fee capital improvement plan. Do I need to read the rules again, Abby, or?
Yeah, you can just acknowledge that the
Okay.
same rules are.
Same rules as we had before. Again, if any public wishes to address this, please fill out a form in the back. So Donna and Caitlin?
Yeah, Donna's just getting me set up here. I'm
Okay.
gonna do the presentation.
Return.
On the return. Okay, let's hope. Okay, good evening, Council and Mayor Griffiths remotely. This is about the Public Safety Impact Fee, CIP. As you recall, we previously adopted a development impact fee. Well, we currently have one, but when we first adopted one, we collected a public safety impact fee. And the line item we collected it for was the acquisition and construction of a Kootenai County Sheriff's Substation office. In the 2016 update, we dropped that fee. And under the Impact Fee Act, we have 8 years to spend the fee unless the city extends it to 11 years by resolution. We did that via resolution 2017-6. So we have extended it to its maximum life of 11 years. And the Impact Fee Act requires that if you are not spending it, that you need to refund the fees. And it's on a first in, first out basis. So they start dropping off by month. So we have been refunding that fee by month since September of 2020 because we don't have an eligible project to use it for. We have tried to work with the sheriff's office for a substation somewhere in the city, whether it's in the council build in City Hall or another location in the city. And the sheriff's office just at this time doesn't at least have current plans to do that. So we can't really use the fee since it would be their office. So we've been trying to come up with a project while we still have funds left. We have about $60,000 today. One item that came up as part of the Honeysuckle Beach study was the need to have a sheriff boat slip in Hayden. The sheriff's office estimates that it takes them about an hour to respond if they get a call from somewhere either on the lake or surrounding area, an hour to at least get the boat launched and ready to respond. So the sheriff's office is interested in having a boat just maintained at Honeysuckle Beach to increase their response time. So in order to amend our capital improvement plan to use the fees for this project, we would need to add it in to the CIP since we only had one project before, which was for the substation. So that's the purpose of this hearing. We noticed it properly in the press. I think Melissa has in here, it wasn't noted, the hearing is noticed for today, but we noticed it 15 days in advance of today as required under the statute. City's website, we haven't received any public comment. So the plan is to install the dock, cover a fence and gate and pilings before the 2022 boating season. The city currently has 2 bids and there are enough funds left to cover the cost. Like I said, it's about $60,000. It'll cost $40,000 to $50,000. The Impact Fee Act is not specific on the difference of when you can secure fees, meaning tie them up for use on a project. There's no distinction between contract and performance. So the sooner we could get an agreement, or get this plan amended to do that and expend the fees on it, the more fees we will have. Otherwise, they will, again, Sandy will continue to refund fees same thing, in the first in is the first out. So, but even if we were not able to do it until the spring, we'll have $50,000. So the request tonight is to amend the public safety impact fee capital improvement plan to include the following: a permanent facility at Honeysuckle Beach for marine response on Hayden Lake. Council may approve or deny the change to the capital improvement plan. So that's the request. We like to use the funds, and so we need an eligible project to be able to do it.
Caitlin, what happens to the $60,000 if we deny it?
It'll all go back.
Go back where?
To those who paid the fee.
Okay.
Yep.
And
So-
those are?
Developers who pay the impact fee when they come in to pull a building permit. And so Sandy, the city has all the records of who paid the fee, and that's where the refunds have been going. And some months, Sandy, they've been like $2,000, $3,000.
Those are the big months.
The big ones.
A lot of times it's just a couple hundred.
Yeah.
It's just whatever came in
Right.
11 years ago.
Yep. And that's what has started to drop off first, is the older ones 11 years ago.
So just to be clear, I guess where I'm going with this is, these are not taxpayers'
Right.
dollars.
Yep.
These are
Yep, we've got the impact
developers'
fees.
dollars. So, yeah, because my first thought when I seen this is, well, most of Hayden Lake's in the county, so why should the city?
It
But
is.
it's been provided by.
And one of the nuances of this project is the impact fees the city collects, we want to spend in the city. The city holds encroachment permits from the Department of Lands for those docks. So Honeysuckle Beach is truly an area the city of Hayden exercises control over. You get far enough out in the water, and obviously it's state control and then the county patrols. But those docks are the cities. We're the permittee through the Idaho Department of Lands and through a submerged land lease, so.
Well, and I think it's
Docks are
important
ours.
to point out as well that this money has very specific ways you can spend it.
has, yep.
Very specific, so.
Well, and we don't have otherwise we don't have any kind of capital project we could spend it on. So we have tried to work with the sheriff's office in recent years to lock in a sheriff's substation. You'll recall that we tried here at City Hall. We tried to work out something to where they could have an office at Walmart. They weren't interested. And as recent as last year when there was talk about the county moving some of their county facilities over here at least, or somewhere in the vicinity of Hayden, that we could do a sheriff's office. And you know, unfortunately, well, the reality is it takes the sheriff's office to want to have a project to use the fee, right? So it's going to be their capital. I mean, we're using the impact fee for it, but it's really the sheriff's office that's going to sustain the capital on it. So it's got to be like they'll have the dock and they'll put the boat in it and it'll be theirs to maintain. So it does need to be a project that they're partnered with and agreed to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions, Sherry? Dick, do you have any questions? Yes.
Just a statement, this is a good thing, and it has been done before on Hayden Lake. When Richard's new home burned over there by the country club, brand new home, wasn't it? It wasn't even finished yet, and it burned to the ground. And one of the problems that occurred there was the fire department got out there and they did, but the water lines weren't big enough to handle the fire, and they had a problem, so the house burned to the ground. Later, it was discussed about getting a fireboat and maybe having a fireboat down there. So they bought a fireboat, and I think they paid something like $250,000 for the boat, which they still have, but they had no place to put it. So we told them, why don't you talk to the country club? The perfect place for that boat would be at the country club, and then they could use lake water and they'd have all the volume they needed anywhere on the lake that they could reach with that boat, and cut the response time down and all that. And so they looked in it, the country club agreed to it, and I think they're still there. They have a dock down there. It gives the country club, I should think that their fire insurance would be cheaper because they have that thing sitting there, but I don't know if they've done that. But it's worked out really well, and it's just part of what we should do for the community, even if it isn't a direct benefit to Hayden to do it or whatever, it is a partial benefit to us too.
Yep. Yeah, and the sheriff's office has indicated the increased presence at Honeysuckle Beach, the quicker response times to just get down there in general, and if they could just have a deputy there more often.
Good thing.
Positive for safety at Honeysuckle Beach.
Do you have any questions, Matt?
Yeah, who will be responsible to maintain that dock? Will the county do that? Or do we have that factored into our impact fee?
We do not have that factored into our impact fee, and our previous line item of a substation didn't either. My thought would be the county would be. We are going to require the dock and the slip and, have the gate, have the fencing, and then it will be kind of handed over to the county to have a boat slip. They will maintain that, and at their choice have the boat in it as often as they want.
So I think tonight this would approve putting it in the plan.
Yeah.
There's still work to do. I anticipate we would have an agreement on how all of that would work as they move forward.
Yeah, we'll have to have an MOU because we'll have to jointly apply to the Idaho Department of Lands. The city has reached out to the Department of Lands because we would need a permit for this as attaching to our dock, and they don't anticipate a problem, but we would have to jointly do that together.
So what, if anyone has ever experienced going down to Honeysuckle and seeing a bunch of boats being put in, could you imagine the sheriff showing up fourth in line or fifth in line, waiting for,
Right.
So where they could jump out of their rig and get into the boat is really a great opportunity to cut down on response time on that lake. So I really like this idea. I think it's good for the city and for our county as, and the people out on the lake. I think it's great.
And you can take public comment now, Roger.
Okay.
Yep, I'm done. So if no one has any other questions for me.
Yes, please.
We got to ask you to fill out a form if you want to speak. I'm sorry.
I had a question.
All right, nothing else for me.
Any other public that wants to fill out a form? Sorry. Okay, no public to ask questions. I guess we'll close the hearing and deliberation of council. Dick, do you have any further comments?
No.
Matt?
No, go ahead.
Jerry? Okay, can we have a motion then, please?
Yes, we do. I would make a motion to approve the CIP.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Hearing none, roll call, please, Abby.
Councilmember DeLang,
Yes.
Council President Satterfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Roeder.
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker.
Yes.
And at the September 14th meeting, we'll just have a resolution on the agenda to amend 2007-6 and to put that in the CIP. So just as a follow-up to this meeting, we'll have that at your next meeting. All right.
Sounds good. Okay, our third public
Thank you,
hearing.
Caitlin and Roger.
You said thank you.
Oh, okay, one more public hearing, budget appropriations. Same rules as the other two previous public hearings, so Brett's going to handle this one.
That's not a bad thing.
It's already sharing, right?
It's sharing, yes.
Okay. All right, good evening. Tonight we have the FY22 budget hearing for folks to be able to comment on. I'll go through, I've just got some brief slides. We've had numerous meetings on our budget already, and so I won't go through, the plan isn't to go through line item by line item. We'll hit some highlights, but I just wanted you to see our budget process so far and where we're at. We're on the 9th item, to have the public hearing to seek approval for the budget. The budget highlights, I've added a few here. The property tax numbers we have in there, the 3% plus the new construction equal about $86,827. The House Bill 389 that passed lost us about $5,000 for our budget. We were going to the new medical plan, and then also we had in here the cost of living is above 4. I put in here, and we've talked about this, a 4% COLA with a 1% merit for the employees. That's in the recent years the highest that we've put there, and I've mentioned previously we've had a hard time with the current climate maintaining or being able to hire some employees to attract, and so I think this will go a good way to help keep us in the market. The ARPA money, I've mentioned that's the American Rescue Plan Act money. The city's to receive $3.2 million. We've received the first installment of that, and it's included actually as part of what would carry over from this year into next year's budget and is included in next year's budget. And so we have some allocation here that we have some in the general fund of 1.2 million, and then we put 2 million in the sewer area. Again, the council would need to, as we bring forward projects and look at that, those things can be moved around, but we'll need to have some discussion and prioritize which projects to use the ARPA money on. The increases that you'll see on the revenues as far as the road money that we had went directly to our road program. So next year we should have, it's about 180,000 increase on the road money. That will all go directly to additional projects, additional overlays, or chip seals, depending on what Public Works decides on how to use that money. And then we have prioritized projects that will hopefully be able to knock off a lot more next year with a 525,000. Some general projects that we have in for capital projects in the general fund. We want to look at getting an elevator in this building. We're not ADA compliant. And as part of that, there's a little bit of remodel in the elevator that would be required. We put in 200,000 in for that project. Money for a generator for this building for emergency purposes, and then also money in to look at the Public Works facility, moving our Public Works group from here or at least studying it. And we're in the midst of looking at this, but we have some money in there to look at the Public Works facility. Projects, larger road projects, construction of Honeysuckle and 4th Street is the #1 road project. We're pretty much there as far as design. There's a couple very minor things left to look at that. And then also the Ramsey Road project for next year, putting sewer in and a portion of that road. Those are the two main road projects for next year that we're looking at. Snow plowing, we have had to increase that based on costs with mac chloride and other things of $15,000. The transfer of 1.8, I just threw that back on there. That's a large part of that is the ARPA money, just going to capital or sewer.
Brett?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. You need to either identify it with a K or an M. It's not $1.80 for the record.
Oh, yeah, it's 1.8 million. Sorry, thank you, Mayor.
That's so, thanks.
Yep, that's an M. And then this also includes the O&M increase according to FCS, which we just approved a few minutes ago. And then there's money in there to do a lift, the lift station for H6, which is on the north side of town, to work with the developers for them to basically front the money by doing an LID. And then the city also participating in that to get that major infrastructure in place. And then lastly was the increase to the sheriff that we put in the budget for $79,000. So those are the budget highlights. Here is just, I put the general fund just so people could kind of see the revenues that are coming in, where things are coming from. Property tax is the highest one. We're at 1.7 million. That's 24% of the revenues that are coming into the city. If you were again to compare with other cities in the area, primarily Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, and Rathdrum, and you look at their numbers are probably 3-4 times ours. Again, our levy rate is just under $1 per thousand, which is one of the lower in the state, which is good and bad. I mean, we're conservative as far as how we spend, but it's a pretty low levy rate with the things we're trying to do. Sales tax is the next one at 20%, so you can kind of see what is coming in. The state highway distribution portion is significant. The development fees, those are building permit fees, subdivision fees, those kind of things that come in. So anyways, that just to give you an idea of where the revenues are coming for our general fund budget. General fund expenses, where we're spending the money. What's unique about our pie chart is most cities you would probably see maybe in the range of half the budget going towards police, and in our situation it's a lot less. The Public Works, Streets and Parks is the primary driver of our budget, so streets and parks. And actually streets, when you look at that, is within that is the primary driver. I didn't try to separate those out because the administration portion over streets and parks is the same, and I can't pull those apart, but it gives you an idea. If somebody has a question about how those are spent, you can come talk with me and I can walk you through in more detail. Recreation, 6%. Community development is the next biggest item. That's planning, inspections, and so forth. So anyways, that's just a kind of a quick view of what the budget looks like. I did throw on, this is kind of for the mayor here at the end, we do have some carryover monies in our budget. They're actually in our, basically in the bank account. We have some rainy day money, and we have the carryover money over the years that we've had that we're saving for projects. And so just so people know that the top 3 projects, in talking with Public Works and others that we're looking at, the Public Works shop getting adequate facilities there is and I've got a broad range there, 2 to 4 million. And the Honeysuckle 4th Street, we're hoping we can get a grant for that. We're still looking at that, but it's likely that we'll have to use some of the general fund, this carryover money for that project. And then the Hayden Atlas intersection is another one. There's other projects that are there. These are the top 3 that we just wanted to put out there as designated projects for use of any general fund carryover money. So when you look at the CIP or capital improvement plan over the next 5 years, there's a significant amount of projects that are there. And so the money that we have there, we could spend it over, multiple times, multiple projects. And so we prioritize them and look at what's needed and start to move based on those priorities. So anyways, that's all as far as presentation. The budget from when we published it before and you had it has not changed from that. It's the same budget. And so that's just a premise to having any public comments or any questions from the council.
Okay, Jerry, do you have a question?
Britt, can you go back to the first pie chart? So, the sales tax revenue, has that figure increased at all, or has it gone down from?
It's gone up this year again, which is surprising with COVID and everything. They actually, the state had projected it was going to be low, and it actually was above their projections. And so I don't remember the exact amount, but it was actually a couple $100,000. And this sales tax is, I've combined it here, but you've got state sales tax and then what comes from the county portion as well. So yes, this represents an increase from.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just one question on that slide you have up there right now.
Yes.
The 2% engineering costs or expense, what is that for? I mean, is that what we pay on contract to like JUB, or is that in-house for our engineers, or what is that being spent on?
That's mostly that's our in-house. So that's our engineering division. So that's the employee that's there, his salary, all of that. Plus it includes some project money that they may need assistance on. Like if they need an expert for a certain topic or area, we have money in there for that. But it's basically our in-house engineering with plus some money for additional consultants.
So is that within the budget of, or the fund of the building department or the community development? I mean, where's the engineer?
It's separate. It's its own. That's why I showed it here.
I was just trying to understand.
Yeah, it's its own division is the way I look at it. It's not a separate, it's not big enough to be a department, so I call it a division. And so the engineer reports to the city administrator.
Nick, you have any?
Just a comment. When you look at these numbers and the average person like myself looks at the amounts we're talking about, it seems like a lot of money. But when you compare it to other cities and other government entities, it's just peanuts. And thankfully, the people that are in charge here, the staff and everything, has worked real hard with a levy rate that's probably 1/4 of the other lowest ones in the county to do this kind of stuff. And it looks, when you look at it, it looks like everything is copacetic. All the bills are paid and you're doing real well. The problem with that is that there's a little bit of road construction, road repair, like seal coating and stuff like that doesn't get done. And if you don't do these things over a period of time, then you have to replace the whole road. So that's when it catches you. And so as hard as we try and as much as we do, and as good as it looks sometimes, you're falling a little bit behind every year on some of these things that should be maintained that we're not able to do because we don't have enough money. So I really appreciate what people over the years have done in their individual jobs and stuff, working for the city, trying to get the best deal possible and busting their tails to give, and this is the truth, this isn't just garbage, giving people the best service that they can because they do a good job, and I thank them for that.
You know, I think one of the biggest things throughout my lifetime here in Hayden is that when people look at their tax bill, they go, oh my goodness, look how much my taxes went up. And I have to remind them, look at your city tax bill. City tax bill is peanuts, just peanuts compared to the rest of the tax bill. But because the county has taken it on to collect taxes for all the cities and everybody, it seems like we're part of this huge increase, and we're not. And I myself, I'm very proud of the fact that we have one of the lowest tax levy rates in the state of Idaho. That's the way it should be. We shouldn't have any extra money just to spend because we feel like it. So anyway, thanks to staff. Brett, good job. Is there any public that wishes to comment on the budget?
We showed this last time too, and I don't know if there's any questions on the CIP. We'll be asking to approve the CIP. The CIP is a capital improvement plan over a 5-year period of time, and so those projects are on here. We went through those. I just wanted to see if there were any questions on that.
Roger, or Brett, I have 2 questions or comments, whenever it's possible.
Go ahead, Mayor, please.
Okay, the first, and I think Jerry identified this, the 1.4 under sales tax revenue, it would be foolish to anticipate that number. It would have been foolish 6 months ago or 8 months ago to anticipate that number. It's higher than we thought, but it's allocated to one-time expenses. It is not allocated into our normal general fund budget because it's a variable number. It's a variable that was given to us based upon economics. So just to let you know, Brett and Sandy and team did a good job in not including all of that increase in fixed costs, but they were looked at as one-time variables. And then the other question or comment, and I have it in the notes, was overall, I'm really grateful for the work that was done by every department. We do have things that we have waited to pay off. The physical facilities building probably should have been built 15 years ago, as Ron McIntyre said, but we've continued to try to save money to get to a point to be able to build that. So an important piece of where we need to be going forward, but I think for the record, we've done a great job, just as we did with our software, to be able to save money and then allocate it appropriately when the time came. So those are my only 2 comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Any public wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing. And council, do you have any further comments?
No.
Okay, can we have a motion, please?
So moving that up, so there's an appropriations ordinance. Caitlin, you want to, anyways.
Yeah, well,
They're moving it up.
you know, to formally approve your budget, we have to approve the appropriations ordinance, which is later on the agenda. So this is just the public hearing that's required for it, so. We can take a motion now, but we'll just have to do it again when we get to the appropriations ordinance.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to wait.
Then why don't we move, Caitlin, can we then move 4D up? Will that make more sense?
We certainly can, Mayor. rearrange the agenda,
I
that's
mean,
fine.
I look to you for making the recommendation, but if that is tied into the public hearing, however way council can vote to incorporate both the ordinance as well as the public hearing decision, I'll let you dictate how to do that.
That's fine to move them up if council wants to do that. We'll then just go to the needing to bring the ordinance up, and then we're, the normal process we have for approving an ordinance.
So now we need a motion.
Well, if we're going to move to.
Yes.
So go ahead, we'll rearrange and go to 4D next?
Yes.
Approval of, okay.
We're going to move 4D up to
Okay.
next.
Okay. So bring up that ordinance.
Abby, you have, can Roger have the ordinance information?
Yes.
Okay.
In your office.
So, Kaylin, do we need a motion then on the ordinance? Or
We
do we
would.
need to read the ordinance?
We would need if we wanted to suspend the rule of reading on 3 separate dates, we would need a motion.
That's what I mean. So Roger,
Okay.
you'll need to read that if you could.
He's getting
Okay.
that in front of him now.
All right.
Perfect.
Do I start with the very top?
No, middle.
You need
This one or this one?
that one, A.
Okay. Okay, motion to read the ordinance by title only, to suspend the rule of reading in full on 3 separate dates, and to approve the first reading followed by a roll call vote.
So moved. I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes,
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
And Councilmember Roder?
Yes.
Okay, then,
And then you.
Roger, now you get to read the ordinance
okay.
on the top.
Everything in caps. Up there.
Correct?
Sorry about that, Roger.
No,
So then just that's in bold.
okay. So, the reading of the ordinance. An ordinance entitled the Annual Appropriation Ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, appropriating the sum of $39,520,972 to defray the expenses and liabilities of the city of Hayden, Kootenai County, Idaho, for said fiscal year, authorizing a levy of sufficient tax upon the taxable property and specifying the objects and purposes for which said appropriation is made, providing for a levy of sufficient tax upon the taxable property within the city to yield $1,760,380 for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, providing for the severability, providing repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date.
So I'll make a motion.
Now you need another motion.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the annual appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021.
Read this.
Yeah, you gotta
Okay.
read that first.
Thanks, Matt, but I got to read one more thing.
Okay.
Sorry.
Ahead of the game.
Motion that the ordinance be adopted on its having passed its first reading by title only, and that it be published by summary incorporating the title as a core of summary upon passage, followed by a roll call vote, please.
So you need a motion first, which Roger asked for.
Okay, I'll make that again. I'll make the motion that the annual appropriation ordinance for
No, Matt, not yet. It's a motion, Roger, would you read the bottom? It's a motion that having been, I don't have the wording in front of me.
It's a motion that the ordinance be adopted
Having passed
on
its first and
having
only
passed its
reading.
first reading by title only.
so moved.
And that is, yeah, and all the rest if you're ready.
Yeah.
second.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Matt.
I'll get it right eventually.
So just for confirmation, Councilmember Roder, your motion was what Council President Satterfield just read, correct?
Yes.
So we have a motion.
And a
And
second.
Dick seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember DeLang?
Yes.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
And Councilmember Roder?
Yes.
Question, Caitlin?
Yes.
Does any action, we just did the ordinance, was there any action necessary following the public hearing?
No. No.
Okay,
Do need to.
well done.
At some point.
Unfinished business, 4A action item, discussion and decision on zone map amendment options with associated costs.
Well, question, didn't, we suspended the rule on here, but don't we have to vote on this? On the ordinance?
That is
That is what your motion was, right?
Okay, well, what
Two
Roger-
motions. Your first one was motion to suspend the rule of reading, which Jerry seconded. So then Roger read the ordinance summary, and then he eventually called for a motion to approve the ordinance after
Okay,
having its
and
first
then-
one.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
And we do need, we can do it later, but we do need to do the resolution on the CIP. We can do it later.
Yeah.
Good
And those are-
clarification, thanks.
Yeah, and those are still up. Those are 4B and 4C, so we'll have those ones. I know, but we'll go through it.
So Mayor Donna's doing the presentation.
Sorry, but should we, just to make it easier, Caitlin, should we do 4B and C right now? Since it's not an ordinance, it's simply a resolution?
We certainly can, Mayor.
Plan?
Yep, we certainly can, so.
Then why don't we, since 3B was the public hearing,
Oh,
well, no, I mean, 3A was the public hearing. Under 4B, we need an action item to approve the fee schedule resolution. Do we have a motion to do so?
Didn't they do that?
yeah, they did, but let's just take it in that order for Abby's record-keeping purposes. So is there?
Abby, we're going to 4B.
Yeah, so you all did approve that after the public hearing, but fee schedules are adopted by resolution. So we just need a motion to approve that fee schedule resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember DeLang?
Yes.
Councilmember Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Excellent. Now we'll go to 4C, action item approval of resolution adopting fiscal year 2022 to 2026 capital improvement plan as has been discussed. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2022 through 26 capital improvement plan?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Councilmember Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DeLang?
Yes.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, council. My fault with Roger. Roger, thanks for carrying the water on that. Now we'll move to 4A, action item discussion and decision on zone map amendment options with associated costs. And Donna, I think it's you.
It is. So this is,
And-
go ahead. So this is a follow-up to the presentation that I gave council at the last city council meeting. And so just as a matter of kind of getting back to where we got to last time, you know, when we listen to the public and we enjoy public, good, constructive, positive feedback is always good. And so questions that we've heard over and over is, why am I in this zone? And can I do what I want to do in this zone? And why can't it remain the same? And so specific comments that we've heard throughout the Imagine Hayden and the public hearings that we had with conditional use permits and zones and what have you, through the Imagine Hayden process was a resounded no duplexes, AKA rentals in the single-family residential neighborhoods. Does the city want spot zoning? That's one of the things Councilmember Roeder asked at the last council meeting, and is that good planning? Can we just put the zone back? And what does it cost to make those changes? So that's kind of how we got to where we are today. So I gave you guys a memo. It had like 5 options, but I really am going to lump those down into 3. So the first choice had kind of 3 parts, and these are kind of graphic. So option A is showing all of, in this kind of light aqua blue color, those are showing the 532 parcels that are in the city of Hayden that are zoned currently today residential multifamily. And if we were to follow the Hayden City Code as it exists, our Hayden City Code kind of shows us the process for zone map amendment, that would require us to notice all 532 of those property owners. Would require us to post their properties either at the subdivision entrance or on individual properties. And it would require a public hearing with the legal in the paper, as well as public service announcements presented to or sent out to various agencies and news outlets, and it would be posted on the city's website. And it would also include staff time, and it would include Planning and Zoning Commission time, and it would include City Council time. So that's kind of what's in the chart, kind of laid out. Option B is that exact process for option A, except it would have, in addition to a public hearing with Planning and Zoning, it would have an additional public hearing with City Council. So you would repost all of those same postings you had up before, so it's that time to go out there and post all of them. You would send a second notice out, and you would send the legals out to all of the folks that you sent the legals before, and then you'd have staff time and City Council time at that public hearing for the second one. So that's a kind of to get to the option B. That's why it really does have a map. And then option C would you do public hearing with Planning and Zoning, public hearing with City Council, and it would also be to send notices to all of those properties, just about 1,000 plus or minus properties that are within 300 feet of all of the residential multifamily properties. So that's why those costs go up as well, stuffing those envelopes as well as postage.
Question. The difference between option A and C by the map, you have solid areas, and then you have areas that are just surrounded by a rectangular line. What's the difference between the solid and the ones with rectangular lines around them? The blue ones.
The solid blue is the city limits.
No. The multifamily designation.
So these are the residential multifamily zones in this map. And these are all of the residential multifamily zones and all of the properties within 300 feet of those residential multifamily.
Okay, so why is there solid versus?
It's just the overbleed of lines. There isn't a solid
So there isn't
line.
any differential. It's if they're within the rectangle, like an option A, those are the actual
32 properties.
on A.
Correct.
And then C, I'm looking at B there.
Yeah, B is just, all B is saying you're doing noticing A twice, once for Planning and Zoning and once for City
But then
Council.
compare that to C, you have a lot more blue in there, and I'm just.
That's because all of that blue are all of the properties that are within 300-foot radiuses of the perimeters of the properties that are in option A. Good questions. So, Councilmember Roeder again asked the last time about spot zoning. And so it got me to thinking about the fact that, do we really want folks to have the ability to pick the zone that they're in? If we send out letters and say, okay, you're in this area, do you want to be able to pick the zone that you want to be, if you want to be residential single family, or do you want to be mixed residential, for an example? And so, as an example, we had brought up this particular property at the last council meeting. This is a piece of property that was zoned commercial when it was annexed because it had a manufactured home park in it. So that residential use that exists today in that commercial area, it makes sense because it's a residential use. But if the residential use goes away, then a spot zone like this could allow for any future use to that lot could be a commercial use based on what's allowed in the commercial zone. So that's not great planning. So as an example, this is Stinson Estates. And Stinson Estates is all zoned residential multifamily. That's what it exists today on the zoning map. All of the area that is shown in yellow doesn't meet the minimum lot size of 8,250 square feet of the residential single-family zone that's in our zone text today. And it doesn't exist the minimum lot size for the zone that it exists in today. So if we were to follow the logic of saying, hey, pick the zone that you want, do you want to be mixed residential or residential single-family? Basically, all of this, I think I just turned your recording off. Is that all right? All of this would be split zoned, would have the potential of having two different zones, which is not the intent, never was the intent, never was the intent. This whole subdivision should own the same zone classification and be consistent throughout the subdivision.
Donna, you said something about it didn't meet the minimum lot size?
Correct.
So it was smaller than what the zoning allowed?
It's smaller than the residential multifamily zone allows.
That's what it's in now?
That is.
Okay,
correct.
so this is a huge question for me that just brought it up, because I spent 6 hours going through the Excel spreadsheet and doing queries and sorts to try to understand the whole process better. And then I focused in on the residential multifamily. What I discovered was there's a lot of properties that don't meet the zoning. And my question is, how did that happen? Because we have a zoning, we have a building department, and why are there so many lots that don't meet the required zoning classification?
Well, there's a variety of reasons that can cause that. One of them is that you could be built in an area that a zone was placed over the top of it, and then the existing property that was there as a house, maybe it was built as a house, and at the time it was built, it could be there. But then the zone that was placed when the city went to zones, the zone that was placed on the top of it basically made it a non-conforming use. So you might have a house that was there and it was allowed to be built when it was allowed to be built, and then a commercial zone was placed over the top of it, and that made that house a non-conforming use in the commercial zone. So what happened here was a result of density allowances that were allowed to occur at the time that this particular subdivision was built. So it was allowed to be built to a certain density, which allowed it to be built to smaller lot sizes.
Was it a PUD?
It was not. I need a glass of water. Looking for my water bottle.
Oh, I'll get for you.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
And a lot of these are from years ago. This isn't something that we're doing now.
Well, yeah, I
But there's some
understand that.
existing, and I think, and she'll talk about this, I think part of what they were trying to do was to fix some of these inconsistencies with
Correct.
the changes.
So we want to reduce those kinds of quirks that are not great. We want to reduce that confusing split zone. So again, what happened as part of the city's initial pass at a zoning map was that they went down Hayden Avenue and they took 300 feet of either side of Hayden Avenue and they made that commercial. Well, effectively splitting the lots, 1, 2, 3, 4, in that block alone are split zoned. So part of what we were trying to do, or we would like to see happen, is that it's really hard to develop those properties. We've seen folks come in and request for just an additional 50 feet to have certain zones applied. But really, it makes sense for a lot to own the same zone in the same lot. It makes it easier to administer. But we also recognize that in this particular case, these are all single-family residential homes. And maybe it makes sense that are large enough to be residential single-family. So maybe it makes sense to make them R1, recognize their existing condition, and make them R1, similar to the other homes that are on the north side of Helen Street. You know, again, trying to recognize the existing condition that exists and meet the intent of what that property is about. So again, that's another area. And then we don't want incompatible zones. It's important to note that. And so here we are out here on Peachtree, and why, I have, again, no understanding, but this is the whole subdivision. The entire subdivision are single-family lots. They're all large enough to be R1 lots. These poor folks here in the middle, they're all split zones. So their houses are in residential multifamily and their backyards are in residential single family. There's no logic to that in my world. Anyway, the Crest Street to the south also is all large enough to be residential single family. And it butts up against residential single family. So it makes some logical sense to just migrate it to residential single family, again, recognizing the existing neighborhood context. This lot's a little bit more, you know, kind of what do we do with it? It's large lot. It could be an R1 lot today. Does that mean that it makes sense in the future? Should they come forward with a zone map amendment request to go to mixed residential when they figure out a plan for this lot? Maybe, because they butt up against Northwest Swiss, which is a commercial development that's adjacent to them. And that was the whole intent of mixed residential, was to kind of be that buffer between those residential single-family neighborhoods and the more intense uses within the commercial. So, you know, this whole area could be residential single-family today. So you could choose to do option A through C, you know, any one of those, however you want to notice it process-wise. But ultimately, I really think that if we were going to go down this path, we want to look at kind of each one of these sections and figure out what really makes sense for them to migrate to. And then if they want to come in for zone map amendments in accordance with the future land use map, they can on a case-by-case basis for lots that make sense. So for these lots that are on Peachtree, that are already established built neighborhoods that are in lots large enough for a residential single-family zone, then it probably makes sense to have a residential single-family zone.
Donna, for all of Peachtree?
Correct, the whole thing.
So Donna, have you heard from any of the citizens that because their house is on a single lot, that they would just ultimately like to be R1?
Yes.
That seems to be their most comfort level, not mixed use or
Yes.
any other zoning. They just like to be what they are.
We have heard that.
Yeah, so is that kind of the goal that we're trying to achieve now?
A little bit. So let me keep going. So
sorry.
yeah, I think we're on the right track though. So obviously we want to move these folks to the zone that fits their context of what they are. We want to base it on their size of their lot. We want to base it on the neighborhood context. We want to eliminate incompatibility as much as possible and eliminate split zones, and we want to recognize their existing uses. Okay? So then the second option you wanted us to look at is option D, which I can honestly say I'm not in favor of. So I'll just say that out. The residential multifamily zone has a purpose. All zones own a purpose. And the goal when you're moving to a zone is to make sure that whatever you're developing in said zone meets the intent and the purpose of the zone that you're in. So if we were to put this zone right back in the way it exists now, I don't believe that the 405 single-family residential lots that are in residential multifamily zone today meet this purpose. The purpose says that the residential multifamily zone is established to provide higher density residential housing areas served by collector and arterial streets. We've heard resoundingly from the public that they're not enamored with higher density in any way, shape, or form. And the last sentence says, this zone shall be characterized by buildings or groups of buildings containing multifamily dwelling units. 405 lots are single-family residential. That's nearly 80% of the lots in this area do not meet the purpose of this zone. So I just have a really hard time just dumping it back into the thing, just personal opinion. And 184 of the lots don't meet the minimum lot sizes. Again, I don't see that that's aiding and abetting or aiding anybody or making their situation better. So we can do this choice, it's just not my first choice. So again, I kind of just took the standard design standards, setbacks, overlay coverage, what have you, of what existed in the old residential multifamily zone and pushed it into the existing table, just as a comparable. So just looking at the single family dwellings, which, we've got, the setbacks of the single family dwellings in residential multifamily and residential R1 are the same as in a single family dwellings in mixed residential. The flanking street setbacks are the same. The maximum heights for the residential structures as well as for the shops are the same. The lot coverages are different. So if you were looking at residential multifamily versus residential R1, residential multifamily only allows you a 35% footprint of the lot on the same minimum square footage as the residential R1 square footage, but they're allowed a 45% lot coverage. So you're allowed more lot coverage in R1 than you are in the old residential multifamily. Same minimum 8,250 square foot lot size, same frontage on the frontage of the street, and residential R1 allows for accessory dwelling units, and residential multifamily does not allow them at all. The difference between that single family and the mixed residential, again, is mostly this minimum lot size that you're allowed to have a 5,500 square foot lot in mixed residential versus that 8,250 that you can have in residential multifamily. So one of the sentences that has been made as we've kind of been looking at this, pushing this back and forth, is why can't we just reduce the minimum lot size in residential multifamily? And I'm like, why would we do that? You're just going back to that single family dwelling that's kind of already accounted for in the mixed residential. So the really big differences between these two, between mixed residential and residential multifamily, is residential multifamily, the way it was written, was strictly toward getting you to a rental environment, a duplex, triplex, fourplex, and by conditional use permit, 5 or more dwelling units per building structure, per lot, but they're rentals, which was resoundingly heard through Imagine Hayden, that we wanted to have mixed residential, single family ownership in a single lot, single dwellings on a single lot. So again, I'm struggling with that, just putting it back in. So I want to give you the why I'm struggling with that. So then, boy, you guys are quiet.
What are you drinking there?
Nothing but ice cold water. We've been struggling with these options and trying to figure out a clear path forward out of this kind of spot that we're in. And so Brett and Caitlin and I met with Jerry Mason, and he pointed out a piece of code that I really should have remembered, but I had forgotten. When we did the mobile food truck pilot project, we created an ordinance that had a sunset clause of a year. So it kind of gave you an opportunity to kind of study it, figure out what to do with it, but it has a drop dead date. So at the end of a year, you have to do something. you have to do something. It doesn't just, automatically stay there. So option E is an interim solution. It would be to create an ordinance that adopts the old code as is. It would not be codified. It wouldn't be added in because it clearly doesn't fit. It would allow for additional workshops with planning and zoning and city council, similar to what I was pointing out previously here, where we could kind of try to figure out what we were doing with these kind of spot areas to try to make them make the most sense. It would allow us to complete some analysis that we're working on to try to help answer the question for the city of Hayden as it relates to the fees and taxes that were collected in various zoning districts if they develop to their best or near close fullest extent, if they will pay for their services that they've received. We're hoping to get that study, so we'll be able to answer that. And it would allow us time to figure out if we did want to really add back in some form of this zone back into the code. It would allow us time to figure out how to craft that so that it's not so if you're in a lot that has 8,250 square feet, that you aren't automatically hunting for an R1 zone. If we really create this, we need to create it so that it makes sense to have it here. So those are the options, A through E. Choices really 1, 2, and 3. How do you want to process this if we're moving forward? Or option A, B, or C. That $532, those are the 532 properties, the 50 cents that costs to get the letter to them. If we were to do an actual public hearing and go through that process, the 50 cents to get the letter to them, and the 50 cents on the self-addressed stamped envelope to hopefully ensure that they got their response back to us that was signed, if we wanted to do that. Then, as we're following these options down, this is the cost of the legal property posting, ordinance publishing, and the cost of staff going out and putting a post in everybody's front yard. Staff hours are figured in here. And Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, they're pretty much paid on salary, so it's just hours, but I think it's important to recognize the hours that you guys put in. And then option D kind of just accounts for that legal noticing and ordinance posting moving forward, and then workshops with option D to try to figure out how to morph the code if we're really going to do that right now. This is drafting that interim notice now, and then just staff hours associated to it. So you have options A, B, C, D, or E. A through C kind of go together, but Questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
Donna, with option E, there would be additional meetings with planning and zoning and city council. I want to make sure that we also hear public comment. So that would be worked in as well.
Yeah.
That's very important.
And there's a public hearing requirement to do option E, by the
Okay.
way. And so that's still in the Local IDs Planning Act. It will require a public hearing to adopt that interim ordinance. And then the follow-up, though, which I think is to your comment, Councilmember DeLange, about the public comment going forward, because that is only a year. The interim ordinance can only be in place for a year. So.
After a year, there are no extensions, there is nothing, it's a drop dead date. You have to have something.
We have to have a regular ordinance. Yep, it's no longer an interim one. We would have to have a regular ordinance, have something codified. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So it's not a complete answer, but it's something that would allow us to look at maybe the properties closer.
Yeah.
And some of these areas that Donna has just pointed out in the PowerPoint, to look at some of the ones a bit closer and to be able to do that.
So it keeps Well, depending on what the ordinance says, but what we talked about is it basically would keep that multifamily designation so nobody's zoning would change. You know, and we've heard people concerned with not understanding what's going on. And so it would put that on hold and say, okay, people aren't understanding this. Let's spend a little bit more time. It also, we talked about the model, you know, coming up with, and again, other cities, I haven't found anybody else that has a model. We've talked about, you know, when a subdivision comes in, what are the costs? You know, what are they paying? What are they bringing? What's it going to cost to maintain? We have some rough ideas, and we've done some rough numbers, but we want to have like a model that we can use to do that, and we don't have that. And those, like I said, I couldn't find a city that does, but we think that would be a helpful tool that we could hopefully put in place as part of the bigger picture and looking at what we do with all of this.
Okay. Roger.
Can I interject? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Roger, Abby?
Yes.
Okay, I think I've heard from many people, hundreds probably in the last 4 or 5 months. Good, bad, up, down, positive, negative. But what I think happened is we have a lot of people that are concerned, and we tried to do, I think, as a city, too much at once. And when we have growth concerns, when we have all the other concerns going on, it seemed like we tried to do too much too soon. And Option E allows, I mean, just with the Councilmember Roeder's comments back and forth with Donna, there's a lot of stuff that needed to be fixed from years and years and years ago that just wasn't done. And that was part of the intent of what the new comp plan was going to drive. But Option E lets everybody, I think, take a deep breath. Once we communicate clearly or more clearly with respect to specific zoning and specific areas that are not zoned correctly, I think it'll help all of the community come together in a better way. So anyway, I wanted to share that following the presentation that Donna made, that I think from a staff, from an organizational standpoint, a lot was done too quickly without adequate communication back to citizens, and those citizens are concerned. And so E allows the opportunity to be able to address more specifically what the city was trying to do to fix things, not to cause greater problems.
I think the other thing, I spent 2 hours at the open house. You know, the overwhelming thing that I seen was confusion. People, whether they were misinformed, whatever the reasons, it really doesn't matter, but people just didn't get it. They didn't understand it. And it's a very complicated thing. It's not, you know, I spent 3 years on P&Z, and I don't know that I ever truly understood it. I do now, but it's complicated. It's difficult. And as the mayor said, this gives everybody, the last option gives everybody a chance to breathe, talk with their neighbors, talk with their families, just take a moment and decide, what do they want for where they live? You know, I mean, I don't live there. You know, I'm happy with where I live, but, you know, we weren't, so it doesn't matter. I like Option E. It just gives everybody an opportunity, and maybe within the next year, we can get it right.
Well, I think you've covered it pretty well. I don't know anybody, including us, that understands all of this stuff. I can see why a mailing and all that and informing people of this would just drive them nuts, because what in the heck is going on? Because you know something? We don't really even know all the answers to this stuff. It's going to take some time and to do it right. It's been covered here. But a lot of the stuff that you just brought up, Donna, I wasn't aware of these lots that are zoned half this way. It's kind of like a state line running through your kitchen. Where do you pay your taxes? You know, I mean, it's, I think we need, but your option E is the one that I favor at this time. And during that time, let's get serious about it and do the best we can to fix all this stuff so we don't have to do this again.
My turn?
Well, it depends.
I don't have watch. What I learned today is I had a really good appreciation of what our planning and zoning, community development people have to deal with. Those problems of not zoned the right way, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And I looked at ag, I looked at our residential suburban, I separate them. That's the only way I could deal with it, because there's so many. And then to look at the complexity of each problem. And I want to bring up a term that I learned. Well, I knew kind of the term, but not according to zoning, but the term is a quirky area. And that quirky area was actually a quote from some correspondence in the city is, well, I've never seen that in a zoning ordinance. What's quirky? And I would just want to read what our people were saying here. It says, quirky is defined as something categorized by peculiar or unexpected traits. These were areas where changing the zone to the future land zone map designation wasn't cut and dry and needed more discussion. And that's really the critical statement there in my mind. These were areas staff wanted to work with P&Z. Some of these areas were brought to our attention by the public. Others were areas that staffs had concerns with. And then they identified a list of those quirky areas, which are these multifamily areas. And so how can, if we don't get it, I mean, it's complex and our staff struggling with it. Think of the public. And that's, to me, really, really important that they understand what we're doing and they have confidence in what we're doing. So again, I just want to thank our staff, because this is a hard job. And I didn't realize until I looked at all that spreadsheet and went, wow. So all that to say that I think E is the way to go. We need to take a breath of fresh air and kind of, at least I would like to have a better look. And I want to make sure we're only looking at the residential multifamily. That's what we're going to focus in on right now. And all the other zone changes are not going to be considered at this point?
Right. Council, as of the last meeting, just decided to focus on residential multifamily.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Yep. And so through option E, excuse me, an interim ordinance will be used to place the old existing residential multifamily ordinance back in effect. We won't codify it, but we'll have it valid and in effect for a year. So nothing prohibits those in residential multifamily from on their own seeking a zone map amendment as usual, but we can have that in place for a year. So the next steps with that would be we notice up a hearing for P&Z to do this, and then it works its course through you to initiate that, put that ordinance back into place. That's the next step.
Yep.
So
is there anything more that needs to be done? Do we need more discussion, or is there a motion? I don't know that we've heard from each member of the council. Sorry about that. It's hard for me to hear.
yeah, I'd like to make a motion regarding the zone.
Sorry, Matt, I saw Jerry's hand, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted, I had a question for Donna before, but I'd like to add my comments. And I just want the citizens of Hayden to know that we are trying our best to listen to all of you. And we have, we've heard your concerns. And so the issues that we're facing, and we were trying to do the best with updating the comp plan and make changes to non-conforming zoning, and those issues took a number of years to occur. And with the comp plan process, we started that in 2019, and I kind of have to admit that, I mean, even though it was a 2-year process, I mean, 2 years with all of the complicated issues, that's a short period of time, and we were doing our best to try and solve things, but we did, I mean, people were upset and concerned about their own properties, and we want to do what's right for Hayden, for the citizens who live here, and so we're listening, and I think option E is the best solution for right now. It will give us time to take a look at things, and as Donna explained with, like in the area of, Peachtree, it makes perfect sense that would, like all be zoned single family, and anyway, I believe that we can come up with a better zoning map and make changes where people are happy with the direction we're going. So my choice is to go with E.
Roger, can I say something, please? One of the reasons, and I think it was mentioned earlier, that this has occurred over a period of time is this city has only been a city since 1955. And when I was mayor here, we had 2,000 people here. We only had a half a dozen people working here, including the street department and the clerk and people like that. But a lot of decisions were made over the years by people that maybe weren't qualified to make those decisions, or we didn't have any rules to follow because we were just starting out, People were trying to do something, and maybe somebody had an agenda. Well, they wanted this and they wanted that, and it worked in there. It's a wrong way to do business, but the end result, that's why it's so confusing today. And so it's going to take a little bit of time to straighten this out, and let's do it.
And I think just a quick little story was I bought a house over on Miles and Maple, fixer-upper, didn't pay hardly anything for it. It was a mess. Most people wouldn't have lived in it, but that's all I could afford. I started to remodel it, started to fix it up. Did I get permits? No. Did I follow the rules? No, because my focus was on fixing it up. And this was in 1985 when I did this. And as a matter of fact, the mayor at the time, which was Mr. Panabaker, stopped by and thanked me for fixing up an old piece of junk. So where we are today, there's just one more little reason why we're kind of where we are today. We haven't been a city very long, and I was awfully independent. I was going to do it my way. So
Was?
Well, all right. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks, members of the council. Anything else, Donna, that you'd like to share before we go forward?
Nope, we just need a motion.
Well done, Donna. Do we have a motion from the council to decide which option to move forward with? And I'm sorry that I ended that question with a preposition.
I'll make that motion. I was way early before, sorry.
I'll second it.
That the zone.
We have a motion and a second.
We select option
Here, Abby.
for the zone map amendment with associated costs, and we have those different options, and I would make the motion that we approve option E.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor, we had a motion and a second.
Okay.
Thank you.
For option
Sorry, I
E.
got into myself.
For option E, that's okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
And Councilmember Roeder?
Yes.
Thank you. City Administrator report and calendar review.
So I'll just mention on the last item, Caitlin's here, we'll instruct her to prepare. We'll work on the change that you just approved and get it noticed to take it to P&Z. I think as part of that, we may have some discussion about at the next meeting, just to message out to the folks that received the letters, and so that we can decide how to do that. And we'll work on that, give you some suggestions on that. So other than that, we're making progress on getting a senior planner. At the next meeting, hopefully we'll have an announcement that we can make and moving forward with that. And then just lastly, just so everybody knows, Labor Day is coming, which is coming faster than, to think that summer's almost over is weird. It's gone quickly, but after Labor Day, we'll change the parking back at the Honeysuckle Beach and make those changes back. So just in case you're aware of that, because that may happen before our next meeting. So that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you. And the next council meeting is September 14th.
Yeah, that's correct. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to mention this too. And Sandy gave a presentation earlier and stood up. Sandy Rudy is our finance director down here, and I just wanted to thank her for all her efforts and work on the budget. She really gets into the technical side and on the computer side of things and really helps put that together. So I just wanted to thank her as well.
And trust me, she's tighter than the bark on a tree.
Oh, we like it. Thank you.
She does her job exactly the way she is supposed to.
Absolutely.
Good. Thank you. Any other reports from any member of the council?
No.
Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
You got it.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
All right.
Thanks.